Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Asia Pickleball Insider. I am your host, Migo Claudio, and alongside me is the one and only, still in the US of A.
The kind of the homeland, I guess. But yeah, I'm in the USNA in Florida doing doctor's appointments, but surviving.
We can't wait to have you back here, but you should definitely hoping things go well for you over there.
Thank you. I can't. I want to be back too. I want to paying for a condo that I'm not at.
That's very true. Yeah, Asia, a bit of a quieter week. A lot of the things that we talked about from last week settled down a bit. Gabe Tardio posted an F on his Instagram. I saw some comments saying Franklin. I saw James said FRPM, which was kind of hilarious. And then there's, of course, the Facolos idea. So I don't think he's announced as of this recording. He might have already announced by then. But giving it pretty good chance that we're right.
We all know. We all know where he's going.
It makes the most sense. Yeah, so
We all know.
all the leagues are getting ready for the upcoming year. Everyone's announcing their plans. Everyone's preparing, which is what we're mainly going to talk about today. We got the PPA schedules. We got the Global Pickleball Alliance from the APP side, just announcing their rankings. We'll talk about a bit how that works and their tier system. We have PCL announcing their season 3 and how that's going to work. It's a very different idea, and I'm very excited to talk about that. And then we'll also briefly cover the results in the WPC Masters. So, the PPA schedule, they're starting in April and have 2 tournaments in May. So, it's back to back in May. We have one in Hanoi, one in KL, and one in Macau. So, really sticking to the main 3 countries that they went last time. So, at least for the first half of this year, no, they're not expanding to any new countries yet. Which, I mean, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to leverage the biggest markets. But I feel like if they want to actually continue the growth of the sport, they would really need to bring it to a new country, because the first PPA is always going to be like the one that creates the most buzz. And all these places have already had one. So, this is me kind of coping for a Manila leg, so I don't have to travel to watch the pros. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I thought there was. I was told there was going to be a PPA in Manila.
at least not for the first half of the year, not yet. I think they might still be waiting for the Helios facility to be built,
Second half.
which would be
I heard they were going to do one
2027.
before that facility's done.
I think I might have heard of that too, actually. Though they might use Stella Park, which, if I'm not mistaken, is where
Yeah.
Saipic. It's a new facility that has like 14 courts, I think. Really nice facility. I haven't had the chance to go, but yeah, lots of new facilities being opened up in the Philippines. So yeah, it's gonna be exciting to see. And, with all the players changing partners recently, I'm gonna want to see what people do when they come over, and also to see how the Asian players do. The Trailblazers is happening and all that, but PPA is gonna do PPA things. On the APP side, they're starting their season, the 2026 season. They had a tournament in Australia to start. It was like a SciPic NPL event, and there we got to see a bit of how their ranking system works. So, basing it a lot on tennis, there's tier 1, tier 2s, tier 3s, tier 4s, with 1,500, 250, and 100 points respectively. Winner gets 100%, runner-up gets 80, third place gets 60. So, the main thing that this is going to depend on is how different tournaments are tiered. The tennis kind of already has the system on lock, where not all the top players are going to go to a tier 2, but everyone's going to go to a tier 1. So it's very easy to, like, there's not going to be someone who's going to be able to take a lot of points from a not very populated event. But what do you think about what the what the GPA is doing here?
Like the website. The website's great. I think we mentioned that. GPApickleball.org. I think, yeah, like I said, I think it's very easy to navigate. It's very easy to see. It's very well laid out. So I think props for making it easy like that. I do think looking at the tournaments it's a little interesting. Like you have a tier 1 in Japan that is a $1,000 prize pool, which, that's like 2016 type money. So usually you see the highest tier tournaments have the highest prize money. And then you have a DJoy event in Vietnam. It's a tier 2 that has 5 times the prize money. So a little confusing in respect to why are some tier 1, why are some tier 2 based on the prize money that they're showing. And yeah, so be curious to see how that plays out. But, pretty cool that they're combining, the DJoy Vietnam events. You see the English Open on here. You see Monsoon from the global sports. It's cool to have all of this kind of under one roof and to be able to get points and continuity and have clear, consistent rankings based on all of it rather than just the DJoy rankings or just the global sports rankings or just the APP rankings. So I love the fact that they're trying to pull it all together with an alliance. We will see how, obviously this is the first year of it. We'll see how execution is. That's going to be the big question is a tournament in the US playing an APP going to feel like the same as playing a tournament in Japan or Australia? Who knows? I mean, prize money is not the same. So I think there's a lot of question marks, but I think the way it's laid out, generally speaking, is good.
Yeah, lots of different factors to consider when running something like this. Because if you have a player who's going to be traveling from one to the other, they're going to be expecting more or less a similar experience. But yeah, and I do have a concern with the tiering. You were talking about the prize money. I feel like there are a bit too many tier 1 events and maybe some events that shouldn't be tier 1.
I would
Like
agree.
there was a Psypic event that was the first one that happened in December, and the winners of that got 1,000 points, which is the
Yeah.
full prize for a tier 1. As much as the competition in Australia is strong, I don't think that 1,000 points is equivalent to someone winning APP Daytona
And
Beach.
yeah, of course not.
So
Of course
it's
not.
gonna be, I feel like and people want good rankings. People want to be able to see that this player is higher ranked than this player. But at least
Yeah.
early on, of course, it's going to balance out as more tournaments get logged and more events get played. But it's going to be difficult if there's going to be a certain player. I think that was also the issue with some WPC rankings before, that all the tournaments gave points, and just joining as many tournaments as possible, even small ones, were giving people significantly more points. So if you had someone that won 3 events back to back versus someone that got 4th in like 10 events, that
Yeah.
person had more points and was considered the rank 1. So
Yeah. I think what they're trying to do is obviously there's all of the APPs in the States are going to be tier 1s, it seems.
mm,
And I think what they're trying to do is just try to give other countries tier 1s as well. So those players also have chances of accumulating good points. But I think if you're going to do that, you like all of the maybe just don't make all the APPs in the US tier 1s, like bump some of those down to tier 2s. But I agree. I see what they're trying to do in terms of giving tier 1 potential to players in different places, but I would agree there's too many tier 1s, and I think don't necessarily take them away from the international events. As long like, prize money should be equivalent. Like if it's a tier 1, there should be a minimum amount of prize money for a tier 1 event. Call it 100,000. Otherwise, it shouldn't be a tier 1. If it's a 50,000 pool, it should not be a tier 1. I think that's my take on that. But obviously, there should be less tier 1s, there should be more tier 2s, and there should be the most tier 3s.
yeah, I definitely think that makes the most sense. Another idea would be increase the level of the international competition tier 1s. Like if it's a tier 1 in another country, the APP should, or I guess the GPA should send over a few of the top US APP pros to, I don't know. My idea of it's kind of like a
I
a
think that
check.
is what they're doing. Like that's what they're doing with the APP Malaysia. I know they're putting packages together for APP players to go play it, or costs are covered, all that stuff. But I mean, and those players are getting guaranteed money, which I don't love as well because it feels like you have this global alliance, but it's not necessarily an equal playing field because you have the APP getting assistance and salaries to certain players and travel assistance and packages to go play events when maybe somebody in Vietnam is getting zero support to do that. So yeah, and I don't know what the right scenario is on that because the APP, for a long time they should have, if they're trying to compete with UPA and PPA, they should have done that a long time ago. But their stance at that time was, we just want it to be open, completely open. You earn through performance, and then they eventually got away from that and said, okay, well, to keep some of these players like a Jack and Fudge to Heart, Sophia 7, like we're gonna have to pay them so they don't go to the UPA or PPA. So that's a kind of a new-ish policy, I suppose. But to me, like, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on some of the organizations that are better funded and have been around a longer time, paying their players to compete on this global alliance where the other organizations aren't necessarily able to provide that same support? Do you care? Does it matter? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that can and at some point needs to be done to help grow the sport. Like some these players need to be sent other places. They're celebrities. In the US in the US it may not feel that way all the time. But in
Yeah.
Asia, like you send like this is being completely like I did not know who Eric Onsens was before he came for
Yeah.
PPA Malaysia. After that, I'd say majority of pickleball players in Asia know who he is. He
But at the
really,
same time, like shouldn't the players be responsible for that themselves? Understanding that, yeah, if you do go travel to different places, that you will grow your brand in a new location, which is very valuable to you. Should that be the responsibility of the tour, or should that be the responsibility of the player as somebody that wants to grow their brand? And they probably care less about growing the sport in Asia because they're just trying to maximize earnings right now, which totally understandable as well, depending on where you're at in your career and what your goals are. Um, yeah, I guess and obviously the APP, is the APP wanting to grow the APP brand, or is the Global Alliance the brand now that's trying to grow? Because you still have this, even though they're under one roof, call it, there's still a lot of segmentation in respect to the different leagues and organizations, right? You have APP, you have Global, you have DJOY, you have NPL, you have the Canadian League. So it's still confusing in a sense. Yeah. What are your thoughts on all of that? Like, should they all just, I guess it's hard to bring in that many organizations under one brand and figure out how to how to make it equitable across the board, especially when APP's, been around since 2020. Yeah. I don't know, I'm
yeah,
just kind of rambling, but curious on your thoughts.
no, yeah, I definitely agree that it's definitely difficult to work with this many different groups. But I think we had a talk with Shashank about this a few months back, and a really important thing that's been kind of getting it's neglected in any growing scene is just making sure that everything is running profitably. Like it's easy to just expect things to keep growing, and of course we do expect pickleball to keep growing. But if we want things to be around for a long time, we have to consider the sustainability of everything. And that means giving some of these organizations a jump start through APP sending over a player or, supporting one another. And then they're able to build their profitability model off that, where they get the audience, they get the attention of their local market. And it's it's definitely a difficult thing because even the pickleball organizations in the States, it's hard to say if they're fully profitable with how much they spend on
They're not.
everything.
It's
Yeah.
not hard to say. They're not. The answer is they're not.
So as someone who really believes and hopes for the long term of pickleball, things need to
Yeah.
start being revisited in terms of how profitable everything really is, and trying to make sure that things can grow fast but also sustainably. And I think the GPA is working towards that. And I just hope that, they don't stretch themselves too thin trying to compete with unprofitable organizations.
Yeah, and on that point, what is your take on the PPA who said now they're going to have world rankings, not PPA Asia rankings, not PPA US rankings. They're going to have a global ranking. And the PPA tournaments over in Asia are also going to get points towards that global ranking, which will incentivize US players to go get those points. You see it in tennis all the time. You see people going to obscure, hard to reach countries just trying to get some points to say they have points. So I think there's less pickleball tournaments, so we're going to see less of that. But at the same time, I'm curious on your take on what does coming together as a global alliance, does that pose absolutely any threat to UPA, PPA, MLP, all of that? Or is it just going to be kind of like the APP's been, just kind of a lower tier market for players?
Yeah, I mean, can the GPA compete? Yeah, like they can run good events, they can get an audience. Is that gonna stop people from tuning into the PPA? I don't think so. At this point, the only people that can stop the PPA is the PPA. And you were talking
or
earlier about
or 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 bigger pockets.
if another organization is to be formed with even bigger funding,
Yeah.
that but then it goes back to the thing on profitability. And if everyone's just
Well,
cannibalizing from each other.
depends. There's a lot of organizations that don't really care if it's profitable. I don't think PPA is one of those. I think they have too many like investors that need to make money eventually. But I think there's other organizations, groups out there that obviously you're going to put money into something you'd like to see a return, but that need a return a little bit less than the UPA needs a return.
We were talking earlier about growing the sport, and you were asking about how players can come over to different places and do how it could be the player's responsibility to help grow the sport. I
Well, grow
think
their brand if they want.
yeah, grow their brand, grow the sport. I think we saw why that is a bit more difficult for a good majority of the pros with what happened to James.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm saying for like players that are like PPA signed that there is a PPA, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're skirting like, contract stuff where you're doing stuff outside the organization and it's an exclusive contract, it's a little bit fuzzier outside of his situation. I just mean like for players that have the opportunity that are maybe UPA signed that, they have the opportunity to go to Asia, would they, they should for their own brand. Like you said, like you didn't know, like a lot of people probably didn't know who Onsens was. And then, he plays and then now he's known here. So, or in Asia. So
Yeah.
I think to the players value, more eyeballs, more following, more reach.
Yeah. And I think, like you were saying, with the PPA doing events in Asia that fall under their ranking, I think their eventual end goal, because right now they're paying all their players to show up in Asia, probably a significantly higher guaranteed cash than what they get for a normal event in the States. And I think they're incentivized for multiple reasons. One is they have a higher chance to medal because the US, it's very, very top heavy. The same team, same women's singles is untouchable. Men's singles, there's like 3 guys who can win it. Men's doubles, there's 4 teams, but usually just one. And women's doubles, it's 1 team. So most teams aren't fighting for gold in US PPA events. You go to Asia, that changes completely. If someone wants to earn a PPA medal, they go to Asia. If someone wants to build their brand, they can come to Asia. And just now, if they want points, they come to Asia. So I think the PPA's eventual end goal is they don't have to pay for players to come to the Asian events, but that would require a lot of growth in not just the sport, but in how much players are getting paid. But I think we saw Selkirk make a really big pullback on their ambassadors. So I feel like brands are starting to spend less on pros, which could make this goal even harder to achieve. Yeah, what do you think about that? Like, can players sustain that on a player's salary to fly out to Asia on their own expense?
Yeah, I think depends on the player. And typically the better the player's doing, the more support that the tour is going to give them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the ones that can afford it are the ones that are getting help. The ones that can't afford it are the ones that aren't getting help and that can't do it. So it's tougher for them. So it's more of a risk and a gamble for them to make that trip in hopes of a good performance or in hopes of like doing clinics and growing their brand and that kind of thing. I think it's more of a situation on like the APP and the Global Alliance side of players traveling and seeking out points in different places and growing their brand in different places. Because on the PPA side, like it's all pretty much in-house and all controlled, and they're kind of selecting and asking who they want to travel to go to these places. And it's all, they have less freedom and flexibility to pursue stuff like that. And on the Global Alliance side, it's like, if you're not signed with the UPA and you want the freedom and flexibility to play a bunch of different things, you're looking at that, website and all the tournaments listed, the 30 plus tournaments, and you're like, okay, well, how do I craft a schedule here that makes sense financially if you don't have support from tours that I feel like I can, do well at, get points, build my ranking, try not to lose money doing it all with the travel costs and everything that comes with it. And I think it's more of a tough situation for those kind of independent contract players that are seeking out opportunities across the alliance.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, transitioning to someone who is one of those independent contract players. I actually really want to talk about Jack Wong. He just finished a WP. He just finished the WPC Masters and straight triple crown. Singles, men's doubles, mixed doubles. It's actually a triple crown. He didn't lose an event. Like throw
Well, we
back to
played
it.
them all.
Well, yeah, and genuinely if he does join these events, which I really hope he does, because right now he's mainly competing in PPAs, but he does not have a contract, and WPCs, and I think CPCs, but I'm not sure. Oh yeah, no, he did. He does compete in CPC. So if he opens up his schedule to compete in the GPA events, I genuinely think he can absolutely kill it. I think he's getting very, very close to the QD as one of the best Asian singles players, and also there's one of the best Asian players in general. He's like the Asian Will Howells, right? Will Howells was a killer on the APP, just moved up to PPA, and now he's like, this guy is so good, but I need to see him play against the other comp to see just how good he can be. How about you?
Yeah.
Where do you think Jack falls on
Well,
this?
we've seen him play. I mean, he's played some PPA events, even recently. I think he played Daytona, which was maybe December, or November. Yeah, I think December. And I mean, I think he ran into Christian. I saw a quick highlight, and maybe that was like the round of 32 or something like that. You know, obviously, if you're going to play the PPAs in the States and you don't have any points, you're going to have really crap draws. You know, tough to go over there and draw Christian and it's the last thing you want. You want to get like good match experience over there. So I don't know how doubles went. I don't think it went well. So it's hard to say because you don't have just consistent high level competition out here. So I think it's a really big unknown. I mean, yeah. I think the good thing is, and I think the valuable thing is for him is that he is good at all three events. I think that's really, that's a little bit more of a rarity. So I think the fact that he plays all three and does well in all three is good for him and his brand. And it just gives him more opportunity to get results, right? So it's just so hard to say because I think if he played consistently at PPAs or even APPs in the US, that the results would be pretty mid, to be honest. So, but at the same time, I think it would start out like that. But the more experience he gets and the more exposure he gets to that level of play day in, day out, it would get better. So really hard to say. But hopefully with the Alliance and there are more opportunities and tournaments in Asia that all counts towards the same ranking pool, depending on what he decides to do. If he pursues PPA, which it seems like he has quite a bit. Like he plays a lot of the PPAs in Asia. He goes to the US to play some. So it's just a matter of, is he going to, what's he going to do in terms of what he's going to play? Because playing PPA is not super valuable unless you're signed. So, are you going to sign and take advantage of it, or are you going to just stay a free agent and play whatever you want? I think it's more of a question to that. I think what his goals are, if he wants to just kind of capitalize as much as he can, I would say it's probably better to be a free agent because then you can be selective and you can be a bigger brand in a smaller pond. If you want to get as good as you can get as a pickleball player and really test yourself, then probably going PPA would be the goal or the route. As long as I think that's only valuable if you're making a full-time life adjustment where you're going to not just play the PPAs, but you're going to live close to some of the top players where you can practice with that level all the time. I think, just going down to South Florida and practicing with like Andre and Bet and J-Dub and those guys, it's like, if I lived here and trained here all the time and did this all the time, like you just get like, it's the one absolute way to get better at pickleball without really changing anything you're doing just by competing against those players. To me, through looking back on my whole journey, that is the singular best way to level up. And to me, it's not even close.
Noted. I will find better comp.
Yeah. You guys going to be playing with guys that are your level. You're like, you guys aren't good enough. They're like, we just beat you every game. It's like, look, you're still not good enough. I need to level up.
I just lost. You're just lost and like, no, I need to find better comp.
No, you're still not good enough. You're not beating me like bad.
You're not beating me. Oh man. And yeah, so speaking of finding good comp, if you're talking about people close to my age, PCL is doing something very different for their third season. And it's gonna be Rising. It's the PCL Rising Stars edition. So this event is exclusively for 19 unders. So all Gen Z, 19 unders competing, and I guess Gen Alpha too, if they show up, which would be kind of wild to see. That would be kind of nuts. So this is gonna be similar to what was done in last year. with, teams of 4 to 6 competing in their own tournaments in their respective countries, all culminating in a final in China. Main difference being this is all teenagers. So it's going to be super duper exciting to see, completely different players, the next gen, how they play in comparison to the pros, the people we had last season. And not only that, but the teams, and it has not been officially announced yet, so this could be tentative to change, but the teams that win their local events will have a chance for a 3-day coaching with the pros in Hainan, in Ram Sports' new academy, right before the event. So they get a little tune up. And the winners of the event get a full 13-week scholarship to the academy that, I feel like if you spend 13 weeks training with pros all day, every day, with a nutritionist, with the trainer, you can't not go pro after that. Like that's a lot of pickleball.
Well, go pro, I don't know. Like going pros, go pro. I mean,
Local
go
pro,
play pro
Asia pro.
tournaments, but yeah, sure. I think regardless, if you're in that environment, you're a product of your environment, period. If you're around, like I mentioned, finding better practice, if you're around better players and you're getting that every day, and even if you're not playing with them necessarily, but you're like seeing how they train, and then it makes you want to train like that because you see like what it takes to do it. It's impossible not to get better. So to me, that's it's a great opportunity, especially for under 19 to get world-class coaching, to get really high-level reps. And if you go for 13 weeks, you're going to leave being much better than you were prior.
Yeah. And, I just hope that this event will really bring out some gems in Asia, because, I mean, people really see pickleball as kind of like, it's been changing over the past 2 years, but a lot of people still see it as like, oh, my grandfather plays that, or,
Yeah.
and getting to see this
I
event.
think that is, I mean, that was definitely the stigma in the US for a long time. I do feel like Asia's a bit more vibey with it. It's like, seems like a more of a cultural thing.
Yeah. And my hope for this event is that there's just going to be some tween, like not even a teenager yet. Like the guy's going to be 12,
Oh,
just
there will be.
beating
No, there
everyone.
will be for sure, dude. There will be for sure.
I just ran into some guys here, and they're terrifying. They are 11 years old, twins, lefty righty,
Okay,
and they
yeah.
are
It's like the mini Bryan brothers.
They are so good for their age. Their strokes are so advanced.
Clean.
They're
Yeah.
super clean. They got resets. They got everything. It's wild. And they're 11.
Philip.
Yeah. I think they're both signed, not signed, but they're both paddles are from SciPic. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they might be SciPic athletes already, or future SciPic athletes, investing early.
They should be. If they're not, grab them.
If they're not signed.
Should be Ram Sports athletes.
For sure. And speaking of Ram Sports, the last thing is PCL, which is, of course, run by Ram Sports, is partnering with RPM to help grow the sport and help provide for PCL. So, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if this might change. Every single team that joins or wins, one or the other, will receive free RAM and RPM paddles. So, great for people, they're incredibly talented, but just don't have the facilities to buy the brand new equipment, buy high-end world-class equipment. RPM and RAM are both providing that. And
Love that.
I think it's a really interesting move from both brands. And this is definitely gonna make a lot of people switch to both brands of paddles.
I also like that. You don't see a lot of like parallel paddle brands work together and say, this is a win-win. Like whether they want the RPM paddle, whether they want the RAM paddle, it's, if they want one of ours, it's a win. And we're doing good things for the sport, and we're putting more paddles in people's hands and giving more opportunities to people. I like the partnership. It is interesting though. You don't see paddle companies kind of work together in respect to trying to grow the sport like that.
Yeah. And it's something that RAM can uniquely do because they don't just offer paddles, right? They offer apparel, they offer venues, they run tournaments. They're such a multifaceted brand, and the paddles is one aspect. So being able to partner and support their whole ecosystem through a partnership with a strong brand like RPM just helps everyone. And yeah, if you are looking to pick up any Ram Sports merch, Rob's discount code still works. I found that out recently.
Rob 20, Rob 20.
Someone asked me to buy a ramp paddle. I sent them your code. If you get a ping off that, you're welcome. But yeah, so hope things. That's it for this week's episode of Asia Pickleball Insider. Talked about a lot. Gonna be an exciting year for pickleball. Lots more competition for the tournaments. Lots of things changing.
We need to look at the schedule across all the tours and figure out what are going to be the premier sports predict events that we're going to do.
Yeah. There's gonna be so many. It's gonna be one every week at this rate, which honestly, not a bad thing. So again, thank you to Ram Sports. If you guys want anything, Rob 20 still works and gets you a Typhoon paddle at a crazy, crazy price. And of course, also like Rob was mentioning, thank you so much to Sports Predict, our sponsor. We were so excited to be running events this year, and they also just announced a new format to play. A new format for how to play where you swipe left and right to make your bets, and it's real-time elimination. So that's going to be super exciting. Cannot wait for that. And that is it for this week's episode of Age of Pickleball Insider. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you again next week.